Hey, bold movers, have you ever looked at someone and thought, she's got it all figured out? I wish I could have that type of confidence. I know I have, and I'm sure that we all have done that at some point in our lives, or maybe at multiple points in our lives, let's be honest. My guest today, Simone Knego, is here to tell you that confidence we admire in other people is something we can get better at admiring in ourselves. Simone is an international speaker, a best-selling author, and a confidence coach who teaches women how to quiet the self-doubt that keeps us small and build real confidence so that you can perform at your highest level and create a greater impact in your life. What I love about Simone and what I think you're going to hear in this episode today is that she doesn't just talk about confidence like it's something you're born with. She talks about it like it's something you build every single day around your kitchen table, in your car, between the chaos and the quiet moments. Now, she's been doing a lot of work in this space, and she's been recognized in virtually all major media outlets. She's also a 2-time TEDx speaker, and today we're lucky to have her join us to share her journey, her real method, and the truth about what it takes to go from unsure to unshakable. So hello, Simone. Welcome to the Bold Moves How Did You Know podcast. I'm so glad you're here to talk about this important topic, confidence.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
I have found in my work around bold moves that confidence either fuels or stagnates bold moves. And I'm sure you've seen that play out many times in your own life, maybe in your clients' lives. So I can't wait to get all into it. And to prepare for our interview today, I did some research on confidence, and it's showing some concerning statistics. And I think you've talked a lot about these as well in your talks as well. I see that a survey from Dove Self-Esteem Fund found 7 in 10 girls believe they're not good enough. By 17, 78% will be unhappy with their bodies. Dove's global research found that 4% of women worldwide consider themselves beautiful. That's only 4%. Holy moly. And then, even as we get into our adult life, women apply for jobs only when they meet 100% of the qualifications, yet men apply when they hit 60%. And one more for you. Close to 80% of women struggle with low self-esteem and shy away from self-advocacy at work. These are pretty eye-opening, and there's a lot of need here, it sounds like, to do education around confidence. And so I know we're going to get all into the layers of this, but your work must have come after you've realized the transformative impact of building your own. So let's start there. What have been the peaks and the valleys of your relationship with confidence?
So I have struggled, I would say majority of my life I'd struggled with self-doubt. I didn't think I was good enough, didn't think I was capable enough, and it didn't matter what I had going on. It was the mindset that I was carrying. So I had 6 kids. That still was enough for me to believe that I was doing a good job, that I wasn't faking it. And when I looked back at where I started, it was really my relationship that I had in high school. I had an abusive boyfriend in high school, and I kind of stuffed it down. I obviously the relationship ended and I married an amazing guy, and
Mm-hmm.
we've been married for 32 years now, but I didn't kind of deal with it, and my husband knew about it, my kids knew about it, but I really didn't talk about it and I didn't really address it at all. And I realized over time with the work that I was doing that really that was the beginning of my journey with self-doubt, and that by not addressing it, by not doing anything with it, that was really why I continued on that path. And I think that I've had multiple points in my life that have been transformative, but it was that understanding that a lot of times that we let things go that we need to take care of, that was a big turning point for me in terms of moving forward.
Thank you for sharing that. And I know that, that vulnerability and of that experience is something that a lot of people can relate to in one sense or another. And It seems as if traumatic events like this can become the voice of their inner critic for decades. I wonder how you began to separate your self worth from what happened to you. Like, what were some of the practical ways in which you started to unpeel, pull back the layers on that to eventually be able to move forward?
A lot of it was understanding the way that I was talking to myself, the way I was talking about myself was not helpful,
Mm,
right? I mean, I think so often we talk to ourselves in a way that we would never talk to someone else. We wouldn't if we wouldn't
mhm,
treat our best friends like that, why do we treat ourselves like that? And of course, we are our harshest critic because we live with ourselves, right? But that idea of that I used to say mean things to myself. I used to blame myself for a lot of things when in reality, none of it was true. It was the voice in my head that was saying, oh, you're not good enough. You're not worthy enough. You're not capable enough. And so I call it the what if whisper. Like, what if they judge you? What if you fail? Right? All those things that we like to say to ourselves all the time that keep us from trying, that keep us from moving forward. And really peeling back the layers for me was open conversations to say, I've never told you this before. Let me tell you what happened to me. And actually, in my new book, I write very
mhm,
specifically about some experiences with that ex boyfriend that really kind of made me take a step back and say, okay, I have to leave. Like, I have to leave. And as I got older, I realized, like, what do I want my kids to see? What do I want my
mhm,
kids to know? And I know for me, I can tell them all day long, don't do this, don't do that.
mhm,
But when I really share experiences and share
mhm,
stories, I think that's where it hits home. That's why it was important for me to share what I went through with my kids. And again, from there, that piece of, I mean, that was like healing, right? Being able to say, here's what happened. It wasn't my fault, right? Here's what happened. It's not, there's no
mhm,
shame in it. This is just it. This is what happened. Now
mhm,
here's how I'm going to move forward. And it's that taking that next step every single day. And then after a while, it just becomes this is your routine. Like I can talk about things now. The first time I tried talking about this, I was on a stage and I
mhm.
froze. And I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, it was really hard
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
I was like, oh wow, I'm really saying it out loud to strangers. But it's powerful. And then what I realized was the more I shared my stories, the more people could relate to me,
Mhm,
relate with me. Like I
mhm,
would have women who would come up and say, wow, I went through something very similar, or my daughter was going through something just like that. And
mhm,
it's like a safe space now that people
mhm,
can say, you know tell me how you moved forward, tell me what you did. And that's kind of a lot of it. When I realized how I got from point A to point B, that's where
mhm,
how I created my real method, because I realized the things that I really
mhm,
struggled with and how do I move forward from them. And that's how my
mhm.
method came about.
It sounds like that vulnerability of opening up and sharing your authentic self with another person is the beginning potentially of like healing. It's a part of the healing journey. And I wonder too, like those people who, your story is helping them, but I also wonder if they're relating to you also helps you feel less alone as well. That, wow, I'm not the only one going through similar things, and be able to realize that just because something happened to you doesn't mean it has to define you. Does that
Oh
resonate?
yeah, 100%. I'll give you another example that's just like that, where I was at this women's event. And again, for years, I lived behind this facade. I put up this facade that I was tough, I was strong, I
Mhm,
never cried,
mhm,
because at that point, that's what I think people expected of me. They expected me to be this really strong person because I had 6 kids. I must have it all together, right? No, not at all. And I'm sitting at this event, and one of the women I'm with, who is a friend, and from the outside, her life looks perfect, right?
mhm,
She has it all together. She's doing all the things. And she started talking about what she struggles with or struggled with. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone, right? I had no clue
mhm,
that she struggled until she said those words, because
mhm,
from the outside, it looked like everything you see on social media. Perfect. And that was like a big moment for me to say, like, okay, this is why we share our truth, because we never know who we can help. And that in that moment, that really helped me, and it helped me move forward.
You're reminding me of a situation. I was hosting a dinner for the Bold Moves community while I was out in Seattle this summer, and a lot of what we talk about at the dinners is the messy middle of making a bold move.
Mhm.
It's not usually I mean, although we obviously we do focus on the successes and the achievements, but making a bold move is really hard. And there's a lot of mindset things that come up, confidence, of course, being one of those. And so we were sharing all of the different experiences we're having and the challenges. And I realized that we were kind of commiserating in this way for a while. And I stopped the conversation and I said, you guys, I just want to be mindful or make sure that we're not spending too long talking about the challenges. Like, is this helpful to talk about these messy middle moments of these bold moves we're making that require so much of us? Or should we spend more time, celebrating the small wins and the successes and the milestones? And the feedback by the majority was, no, no, I love this. We don't get to spend enough time in this space connecting with other people in that real, authentic, and vulnerable way. So, yeah, I've never really heard somebody else talk about how that vulnerability and that authenticity needs to be more part of the experience. It's not really complaining or, whatever. It is helpful in moving forward, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. And yay, it's great to have wins and everything, like you said, you're making
Yeah.
bold moves. Like you
Yeah.
want to have the wins, but if you don't show all sides to it, then sometimes the other people don't get it, right? And that's where I think the comparison game comes in and the jealousy comes in. And so when you're like really showing your true self, like here's what I went through, like these are the struggles that I had, and here's how I came out. Like these are all the things I've done since then, because this made me a little bit stronger in this way. And I think that definitely helps people to say, oh, wait, she's not perfect, right? She has struggles too, and she's still doing it. Like she's still taking that
Yeah.
next step. I think that's what really motivates other people.
Yeah, I think sharing these stories too and putting out there all of the great and the messy helps other people maybe get more comfortable with doing the uncomfortable with which I think both you and I know is the path to greater fulfillment. I'd love to ask you about some of your journey. You already talked about that one pivotal moment that you experienced, but you've gone on to do many, many things that have built your confidence over time. And I'd love for you to highlight one or a couple of those that felt like a major turning point. I know you summited Mount Kilimanjaro, so that's a pretty
Mm.
amazing feat. But yeah, can you talk about like that confidence building experience? Like what were you like before that? Before maybe you did that and then you got this confidence from doing it. I'd love to hear the before and after effect of building confidence.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is that I really struggled with the comparison game. I was
Mm,
always looking at what everybody else was doing instead of focusing on myself. Like, why did I do that? I don't know.
yeah.
Why do people do that? Right? Like, let's focus on ourselves and be the best version of ourselves that we can be so that we can do even more amazing things. But that was like one of the big changes for me. And then instead of saying, oh, I'm jealous of that person, I'm like, that's amazing. Like,
Mm,
let me know how you did that instead of like, oh, I'm jealous of that you accomplished this and I didn't. I think that was a really big change for me. And also just being willing to try new things, right? So I'm not saying you have to go out and climb a mountain. It is doing the little things that you've thought about before in your life, but you're like, oh no, I'll never be able to do that, right? Maybe it's running a 5K, maybe it's writing a book. Not that that's a little thing, but things that you have thought about before, and you're like, oh no, I'm not capable of that. Because it's not true. You are. If you want it and you put in the work, you can absolutely do it. And I think the other biggest change is really understanding. how I was talking to myself, like the negative things that I was saying all the time. And when you hear things enough times, you believe it, right? So if we can tell ourselves negative things all the time and believe them, why not tell ourselves positive things and believe them instead? I think that's such a
Absolutely.
big focus that we need to have.
We've been starting our conversation on confidence and just diving in. And I wonder though if you have a definition for confidence. Like when we talk, I know everybody probably thinks they understand what it is, but do you have a specific definition for confidence?
Yeah, it's interesting because on our podcast, so our podcast is called Her Unshakeable Confidence, really helping my daughter build her confidence. And
Nice.
we always ask the guests, like, what's your definition of confidence?
Mm,
And I would say every single time the guest gives me a different answer, which I think is really important to say, is that
yeah.
your what confidence is for you might not be what it is for someone else.
Mhm.
For me, it's really being able to be who you are no matter where you are, right? No matter who you're with. So you're not pretending, you're not dressing up in clothes that you would never wear, or you're not dressing yourself down, right? You're
Yeah.
truly being yourself. And I read a study one time and I thought it was really, really, well, interesting and sad at the same time. It
Right.
was about women and food. So when women go out with their friends to dinner, if every woman orders a salad at the table, if every other woman orders a
Oh,
salad at the table, that last person is going to order a salad, even if they wanted the chicken wings, which is such a crazy thing to me because we're
yeah.
so worried about what
Yeah.
everybody else thinks that we can't be ourselves, even when it comes to eating.
Yeah, it just shows, I guess, going back to your earlier point, the comparison is probably at play there. And we're just highly influenced by other people and external versions of what we should be doing. The food example is such an important one. And then you can take
Right.
that so much further into beauty standards and how life looks on social media and all of these other ways that can throw your confidence off peak at various different stages of your life if you aren't conscious of it. I guess that's kind of a question for you doing all of your work. Is consciousness one of the biggest ways to start turning the corner on confidence if you're
Yeah,
lacking it?
it's really being aware, right? I mean, I think that so when I talk about, so I have like a little mindset hack that I like to use when I'm struggling. And the first step is awareness, right? It's really about understanding that the thoughts that come into your mind
Mm-hmm.
aren't real. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about that, it's really taking a step back and saying, is this real? Did this really happen? Is this true? Or is it a story I made up? So, and that's what's limiting me, because there's not one person that doesn't have limiting beliefs. It's how we move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a good point. And, you talk about, I read on your website, the cost of underconfidence is so significant. We already talked about the fact that close to 80% of women struggle with low self esteem. And it's leading to all sorts of issues that you've noted: mediocrity at work, missed opportunities, seeking external approval, decision making paralysis, comparing yourselves to others, not setting healthy boundaries, staying silent instead of speaking up. Wow. Okay, so that's a lot of
Yeah.
detrimental impact, right? When you have low confidence. Where does this issue begin for women? I mean, why are we struggling so bad with confidence?
Well, I think there's a few things behind it. I think that for some people, it's something that happened to them when they were younger, or something that was said to them. I mean, even for me, I had a teacher in elementary school that basically told me I wasn't a good writer. And that kind of stuck with me forever. I mean, my degrees are in accounting, but I've now written 2 books. I write a blog post every week, but for years I didn't want to write because she told me that I wasn't good.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times we hear something and we say, oh, wait, I'm not capable of this. I think the other part is society, right? I mean, when we look around us and we see what we think everybody else is doing, right? The picture perfect moments on social media, then we're like, oh my gosh, that's not me. That woman is so much prettier than me. Oh, she's so skinny. I'm not. And it's none of it is real, right? Because there's not one person that doesn't struggle with something. So whatever we see in that person, there's something that they struggle with as well. And I think we have to remind ourselves of that.
Yeah, it's true. And it takes that, like, how do you snap out of it, when you're doing that scroll on social media, to be like, okay, I'm just doom scrolling at this point. This is not
Mhm.
offering any benefit to me. So I've got to shut this app down and get on to something else. Again, coming back to that awareness, otherwise I think we can get too far down the rabbit hole of consuming and letting that shape our reality. I I was, when you were saying about I think you said a teacher, and I wasn't sure if it was an English teacher, but told you that you were a bad writer. I had a
Mhm.
similar experience. A Spanish teacher told me I was never going to speak Spanish. And, that really tore me down because I really wanted to learn a second language. And those words hold a lot of weight. And I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to other people who are in influential positions of power, telling them something that they're not good at or that they can't do, or they don't have a natural talent in that area. And that could set them back for decades. Have you seen that in your work with clients where they come to, the first conversation and something that happened 10 years ago is still holding them back?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it. When did that happen to you? How
That
many years ago was that?
happened. Yeah, I think that happened to me. Was it ninth or 10th grade?
Okay. So the
Long
fact that,
time.
right? I mean, how many things in my life have I forgotten? But I remember the ones where someone told me that I wasn't good
Hmm.
enough. I really do. And I remember with, my that abusive boyfriend, him telling me like he couldn't believe how many stretch marks I had. Like I was a kid. How do but those are the things we remember. And so it definitely, for a lot of people, hearing comments, whether it's from a partner or a friend, or I wouldn't say a friend, right? Because they're not really a good friend if they say mean things. But,
Yeah.
parents sometimes say
Hmm.
things and it unintentionally, intentional or unintentionally, can really affect their kids moving forward because the kids feel like they can never reach that goal because the parents have said, well, you'll never be able to do it, right?
Hmm.
I mean, so yes, I've definitely seen that with so many women because that's what we hold on to. Instead of holding on to the positive, we
Yeah.
hold on to the negative, and that's just human nature, right? We when you think back over history, the idea of fear,
Hmm.
fear was a defense mechanism for the body. If you were afraid, you could run away from something, or we have different ways that we respond to fear.
Hmm.
But obviously, when that sticks with us all the time, we're not willing to try things. We're not willing to move forward.
Hmm.
And again, that so much of it starts with the words that we say to ourselves. And I truly believe we need to tell ourselves a better story.
How do we start telling ourselves a better story? Because I have to imagine that, yeah, that experience around the Spanish teacher telling me I would never speak Spanish sticks out to me. And it was something that I thought about. But sometimes I would imagine these are unconscious thoughts that not
Mm.
necessarily are they all prefrontal cortex or whatever. So, what is like a step that you've used to identify what self-doubt might be contributing to your lack of confidence, and then how do you start to like untangle the web?
Mm. So mm, obviously the control alt delete method, that's my big thing that I start with every time when I have a thought that comes in, and asking myself, is it real? Is it valid? Is it
Hmm.
something, because when we start becoming aware of what is coming into our mind, then we become hyper aware. So it really works that way, that you're like, oh, wait, I'm thinking that thought again, instead of
Hmm.
it just going on random repeat, which is typically what happens, is it just goes on random repeat. So when you start catching those thoughts and asking yourself those questions, like, is it real? Is it valid? Do I really need to worry about this? Am I making it up? And most of the time, we're making it up, right? We're telling ourselves a negative story. And so it really is about telling yourself a different story. So when you catch that thought, you're able to move into the next step and say, tell yourself a better story. Like, why do I need to focus on the negative parts? And then delete the things that are
Mhm.
holding you back. Delete the
Mhm.
comparison game.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's a practice, it's a habit, it's every day. The things that you say to yourself, practicing positive affirmations. And I
Mhm.
think that's crucial because we look at it with athletes, they do it all the time, right? You see Simone
Mm.
Biles at the Olympics, and she'll say, you've got this. And
Yeah.
I mean, and even football players, they do the same thing. They're constantly
Yeah.
building themselves up to
Yeah.
tell themselves that they're capable of all this.
I my last podcast interview was with somebody who has, her name is Ashley, and she's leading the AI revolution at Prudential Financial. Now, this is a first ever type of role, right? Like, AI has not been
Mm,
in the zeitgeist until recently. And so she's helping her company kind of consider their approach to AI and then adapt and transform, leveraging the new technology. And she's first. She's the first one in this position. And I asked her this question. I said, how do you get over the imposter syndrome of being
mm.
first? And she said exactly what you're saying, which is, I tell myself, no one better than you, Ash. So she is replacing those negative thoughts and negative self talk with something that's way more positive and empowering. And so I think it's really helpful to build your own, I don't know, positive motto list or something, your go to list that you can check when you have the self doubt creep in, which can be, and it's true that your brain rewires, can be rewired to turn negative into positive. So I believe the more you do that, the better you're at, the better you can do it automatically over time. So that's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. There's actually, when I really started researching stuff at first, I was like, oh, this doesn't work. There's a lot of science behind it that actually shows rewiring of your brain. Like, they did MRI studies where different sections of your brain would light up when you
Yeah,
continue to repeat positive affirmations. And it's the it's the constant practice of it, though, that makes a difference. Don't try it for one day because that's not going to work.
yeah,
But just like meditation, whatever you're doing, you have to keep doing it for it to actually help you. And it's that.
yeah,
It's funny because I would have said, "Oh, words don't matter," but they
yeah. They
really
do.
do.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah, and I keep going back to thinking about how much of what we absorb about ourselves is also sometimes can be so far in the back of our minds that we don't even
Mm.
know we're thinking it, which is I which is why I think that spending intentional time here, and not just in the moment, because maybe you won't realize it all the time in the moment, but really getting intentional about, how are you approaching positive self-talk, and what are some of the limiting beliefs that you have as an intentional activity, I think can be really helpful to moving forward in this space as well.
Yeah, I think you would be surprised if you started writing things down, how often you say
Mhm.
negative things to yourself. And if you start keeping a list of that, you'd be like, "Oh, wait, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, let me start to make a change here because it is crazy." And again, you wouldn't be saying those things to your best friend. So you shouldn't be saying them to yourself.
totally. So, all right, let's make this super tangible, because, there's probably Melissa who's listening in Minnesota, and she's saying to herself, yes, this is me. I want more confidence, but the negative mind trash just will not stop. What is the first practical thing she can do today to start building that self-belief? Is it writing?
So
Is it something else? What are the one thing that she could stop right now and do today?
yeah, I think it starts with when you wake up in the morning, saying something positive to yourself,
Mhm.
right? I mean, you have a choice every morning. You can choose to be miserable, you can choose to be happy. Obviously, there are outside factors that kind of push you in one direction, but it's really how you respond to things. So when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you're going to say to yourself? I am so excited for today. Like, I
Yeah.
am going to do amazing, whatever it is. if you start your day like that, it will continue like that. And you have to
Mhm.
just keep reminding yourself. But that would be step one. And journaling is great as well. I think that writing down how you're feeling, writing down how you can change that feeling, I think that's crucial. And thinking throughout the day, like, what is something that I'm really grateful for? I
Mm,
think a lot of times we get so caught up in our days that we forget how important gratitude is,
mhm,
and gratitude for ourselves, gratitude for something that we're taking care of for ourselves,
mhm.
instead of just, okay, everybody else is doing a great job. No, you're doing a great job.
Little pat on the back.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. Totally. I I'm wondering what you say to yourself, Simone, in the mirror every morning. What's your latest go-to affirmation?
Yeah. So I have like general ones that I use. I call them
Yeah.
the 5 eyes. And
Mm,
so I say those every morning. So, and they do change a little bit, but I am patient, I am kind, I am beautiful, I am capable, I am more than enough.
mm,
So that is, now some people prefer to use you. So when you're like, just take a step back and kind of not be the center of it. So you're basically saying you are kind, you are
mhm,
patient, you are, for me, the eyes work pretty well. So
mhm.
that's why I do that. And then if I'm doing something different, for example, if I'm applying to be on a big stage and
Yeah.
I'm like, I am worthy of this opportunity. I have worked really
Mm,
hard to get here, and there's no reason that I am not going to get this. So
mhm,
it really helps because it's not, my kids talk about manifesting a lot.
mm,
So, and I believe that, again, the positive affirmations lead you in that direction, but you still have to put in the work behind it, right? So, what you see when people manifest is that they're actually doing the work to get them to that next generation,
yeah.
but
Yep.
they're telling themselves that they're capable of doing it at the same time. And
Yep.
that's what I love about it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think too, like the process of just saying, this is what I want. And yeah, and to your point, I'm capable. This is what I want and I'm capable. Somehow, even when you're not paying attention to that list, orients all your energy in that direction, and the actions you take start to actually add up to what you said you wanted. It's pretty incredible how that process works. I haven't done a manifest episode on this podcast yet, but maybe it's forthcoming.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, do you wake up in the morning and say, boy, I really hope this is a miserable day today? No, like
Not
nobody
me.
does that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's really important to say, like, how can I make it a great day? And that is all about mindset. It's how you put yourself forward. And that's what I love about it, because I used to think that was, not true, that, oh my gosh, it's just the external factors that are going to make me miserable. No, we're doing it to ourselves. So we
Mhm.
can change that. We can change. Sometimes we can't change the external stuff, but we can change the way we see ourselves and change the way we talk to ourselves.
I got a really good reminder of the power of choice when I was let go from my former job, and I was not sure, of course, what the next phase of my career would look like. And I had done the thing in so many previous times where I was unhappy and unfulfilled in my job, and I just let that consume me. And with this event, the layoff, I remember that day getting laid off. Karen joined me from HR on my call with my manager that day, and I thought I knew exactly what was happening to me. And after I got off the call, I remember thinking, I'm going to choose to be happy in this moment. I'm going to choose to be okay that I've just got laid off. Now, that there's a lot of uncertainty on the other side of it, the financial piece of it. How long is this going to take me to get to my next spot choice or position? But just being able to tell myself that I actively choose to be happy or choose to be content with this helped me wake up every morning thinking that thought.
Mm,
So that's also the power of choice, I think, because you get to remind yourself that I chose this. And so if I'm going to choose this, then I'm going to, then it's going to make me happier, that I'm going to do everything I can in my power to let me realize the choice I'm making in the most powerful way that I can.
Yeah, I think then you go all in, right? When
Yeah, you
you
go all
that is
in.
the power of choice. Yeah, you go all
Yeah,
in because you're
you
like,
go.
I'm going to be happy. And how do
Yeah,
I do that? I have to make the choices that are going to make myself happy.
totally. So I want to talk about this little thing called imposter syndrome.
Mm.
Sits on probably, well, a lot of shoulders of women. I know I've experienced it too many times in my life. What is the deal with the reason why women feel imposter syndrome more than men? I think I read at the top that women will only apply for a job if they meet 100% of the qualifications, while men apply at just 60. That seems to be a confidence gap, not a competence gap. So what
Oh yeah.
gives? What gives?
Yeah, I mean, and I want you to think about it because if you're applying for a job that you meet 100% of the requirements, you're already overqualified, right? Uh,
Mhm.
the whole point of you need to have growth in your job. So
Totally.
when the first time I saw that statistic, I was like, oh, that's pretty terrifying.
Right.
Yeah, we struggle across the board. Women struggle with imposter syndrome. My mom, who
Hmm.
is 86 years old now, she actually went to medical school in 1961.
Hmm.
She grew up in a family. Her mom had a sixth grade education. Her dad worked in the coal mines and at a local brewery. And she walked into a library for the first time when she was in eighth grade. And she decided in that moment that she wanted to be educated. She moved in with another family, saved all of her money, and she was like caring for their kids. And she got into the University of Pittsburgh in 1957. And in 1961, she got into their medical school. She was one of five women in her medical school class.
Wow.
And, she lived in a world where
Hmm.
basically it was you're living in a man's world and your voice doesn't matter. I mean, that's what she was told
Hmm. Sure.
so often. And so for her, I mean, that term actually didn't exist back then, but that's absolutely what she struggled with. She never felt that what she had going for her was because she achieved it. She always felt like it happened because someone else gave her that opportunity, which it is a mindset thing, again, within so much of corporate America where women are still fighting to get paid the
Yeah.
same. And I
Hmm.
mean, yes, certain things are better, but in general, it's still a struggle. So, of course, we're going to think that we're not worthy and that we only got it because the other person backed out or whatever it is. And which is ridiculous because if we put in the work, we deserve everything that
Hmm.
we achieve. And it's not that we receive, but that we achieve.
Yeah, I really, not just with applying for new jobs, but, when I think about making a bold move, there's so many different ways that you can do that. But it all does start with being able to try something new,
Mm.
probably, right? Something that maybe you haven't done before. And I think imposter syndrome can get in the way of that. Like, who am I to, go climb Mount Everest, right? Like, or I can't do that. I'm not fit, whatever the story is that you're telling yourself can stop you so quickly from making these bold moves. And it's really doing a disservice to, I imagine, what's the end result of building this confidence, trying new things. Simone, is it fulfillment in life? Like, what have you seen is the transformative effect of having confidence?
Yeah, absolutely. Fulfillment and really feeling like you're making a difference in the world, right? I think that for me is the way I see it because I look at before when I was really struggling, I was like, I'm not making any kind of difference. And here I have six kids. Like, yes, I'm making a difference, right? Take ownership of whatever it is you're doing
Mm,
and stop justifying your existence. Stop saying I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm just so and so's wife, whatever it is. I'm just a volunteer. Drop the just because you're not just anything. You're not just anybody. You are unique and that's what this
yeah.
world is based on is having different people who add different values. And yeah, I think about the idea of imposter syndrome and think that like let's kick that one to the curb, right? Let's say, okay, I deserve to be here. I worked to get here. And yes, you can say, well, who am I? Who am I to think that I could do this? Well, why can't you? Right? So it really is about changing that thought process of if I want something enough. So that's like part of my real method is the ask yourself what you want. Like, is this
Mm.
something that you really want? Then put in the work to get it. And
Mm.
it's one of the hardest questions for women to say,
Yeah.
what do you want?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to ask you next about your real method. So let's get
Mm.
into it. So tell us what the real method is for and then what it means.
Yeah, it's for building confidence. Honestly, it's really for self-esteem in general, but I really focus on building confidence. So the R stands for respect yourself. E is embrace your failures. A is ask yourself what you want. And L is live without limits. And, we talked about the respect piece already, but the embracing your failures, I think that we don't give ourselves enough credit for things. And what I joked about before with failing organic chemistry but I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't go through certain things. And it's what I've learned from them that it's helped me move forward instead of getting stuck in that moment and saying, "Oh, I'll never be able to move forward." And give yourself permission to feel all the feelings,
Mhm.
right? It's not like something happens and oh my gosh, you just have to take that next step. You can sit there for a little bit. Like you can be upset, you can be
Mhm.
sad, but pick a time and move forward because you don't want to get stuck there forever. And I think that's what we do when it comes to failing at something. And I don't even, I use that in the method, but just because you fail doesn't make you a failure.
Mhm.
It's a bump in the road. It's how you learn, it's how you move forward. And if I'm not failing, that means I'm not trying.
Maybe that's why, and I've read the research on this, that it says your confidence grows and builds over time, maybe naturally. Maybe that's because you do have more experiences to look back at and realize that, hey, that little bump in the road that I thought was a major big deal back then, I barely even think about it today. And so you're able to have more resilience. And that I think kind of contributes to confidence building over time. I just have a few final questions for you today. You mentioned the podcast, the podcast you co-host with your daughter Olivia. It's called Her Unshakable Confidence. I'm interested to know what you're teaching her about being a bold and confident woman that you wish somebody had taught you at her age.
Mm. So many things. I would start with the don't be afraid to use your voice, right? I mean, what you have to say really matters. And I see that with her so she's a second year law student and she actually had someone ask her the other day like, how do you have the courage to stand up and speak in front of the class like it's no big deal? And she said, the podcast. She's like, it's really
Mm-hmm.
taught me to think on my feet and that idea of not shrinking, right? I mean, I think looking at how much she's changed over the last 2 years of doing this podcast. Everybody should have a podcast and bring their kid on it. No, I have 1 out of 6 kids that would do a
Yeah.
podcast with me. So, and I feel like I'm winning there.
Yeah.
But yeah, she is willing to take the bold moves because she doesn't look and say, "Oh, what if?" She says, if I don't do it, then what happens? So let me do it because I don't want to ever go back in life and say, I wish I would have. And that's one of the big things I see from her is willing to take the chances, willing to take the risks because she knows that if she doesn't, she'll never know what could have happened, right? If you never ask, you'll never know.
I guess it makes me think about regret. If you keep passing on all the desires you have inside and you get to the end of your life and you look back, there's going to be a lot of regrets there. So you may as well
Mm.
fulfill your desire today. You made me think about, you said courage. How are courage and confidence linked? What's the difference?
Yeah, it's interesting. So people look at it two different ways. Some people say courage gives you confidence and confidence gives you courage. I think confidence gives you courage. I think that when you feel more confident, you're willing to go out there and try different things. But it's almost kind of like a circle, because you can come back and say, I'm going to be really courageous, and that's going to build my confidence even more.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it kind of works both ways. But I do think they're very intertwined, and it does take courage to
Hmm.
move forward in trying new things. And when you do those things, you become more confident.
Awesome. Okay, two last questions here. Hopefully, rapid fire style, Simone.
Okay.
If someone takes away just one or two nuggets from today's conversation, what do you hope to leave them with?
I would say, first of all, is you don't need to change who you are. You need to change the way you see yourself. And the second thing is, talk to yourself like you would your best friend. And I think you work on those two things, and you'll definitely be moving in the right direction.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And then the final question, this is the question I ask all of my guests at the very end. For the listeners who are in the middle of their bold move, they've started the business, they've left a job, they have started a new role through a promotion potentially, or they've gotten that next opportunity, or maybe they're going out to summit Mount Kilimanjaro. What is one piece of advice you have to keep their momentum and confidence going when the initial excitement fades and the real work begins?
Yeah, it's about moving forward. It's asking yourself what you want, and taking it, right? It's not about standing still and saying, "Oh, I hope this will happen to me." It's,
Mm-hmm.
you wanted something, you started the movement, keep going, because it's not about the finish line, it's about the journey.
I love that quote. The joys in the journey.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, Simone, coming on to the Bold Moves How Did You Know podcast. How can people get in touch with you if they're interested in learning all about your podcast or your book or your real method? Yes, what's the best way people can connect?
Thanks. The best way is my website, SimoneKnego.com, which is SIMONEKNEGO.com. My new book, Real Confidence, is realconfidencebook.com. And everything else you'll find on my website. Any social media you want to find me, you'll find me. Yeah, but best is my website. And reach out and send me an email, and I'm always happy to connect.
Thank you so much again, Simone. This has been such a pleasure to talk about this confidence topic. And to everybody else, thank you for listening into today's conversation. We will see you in the next one. Bye for now.